Are you looking for tips to give your puppy their first bath? In today's video, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts and how-tos to make sure your puppy's first bath experience is a positive one. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you get notified when next week's video goes live, and don't forget to hit that like button to let me know you're watching. Michelle here with How to Train a Dream Dog. Alright, so most important, you want to make sure that you have all your tools ready to go ahead of time. We're going to run down real quick what you should have on hand when grooming your puppy. First and foremost, we are going to make sure that we have some shampoo. So this particular one, I will put the links to everything in the description below this video. This particular one is a organic shampoo. It's an oatmeal pet wash. It smells amazing. So this is one of my favorites. This one does have a conditioner in it as well. You're going to want to have a little scrubby, a little Zoom. This is called a Zoom Groom. So it's just got little rubber feet on it that we're going to use when we're giving our puppy a bath today. Probably going to need some sort of container to pour water on, especially if your puppy is a little afraid. However, you do want to get something that can, like a shower or tub sprayer. So at the time of this filming, of course, the one that came in for this video didn't quite fit on our faucet, so we have a little extra something set up for just today. All right. There are definitely different kinds of brushes that you can get as well. Typically, these ones are for the longer haired dogs, and these slicker brushes are for the shorter haired dogs. So I'm going to end up probably using both of these on our pickles today when we give them a bath. Now, you could get something like this. This is a flea comb. Even if your puppy doesn't have fleas, this is really good to be able to scoop out the eye goop in the crevices of their eyes. So we'll show you how to use this today. And of course, if you are wanting to check for fleas, a flea comb would be a good tool to have on hand. You're probably going to want to have a comb or two as well, especially for our longer haired dogs. Make sure that when you get a comb, it has, the wider teeth and then the narrow teeth on the opposite end. And this is going to be really beneficial, again, to getting into harder, tighter places, or when the mats or snarls in your pup's hair are a little on the tighter side. Now, we may need to use some cotton balls to put inside their ears for keeping the water out. We do not want to get water inside your puppy's ears, and we're definitely going to want to use an ear cleaner when we clean out their ears. All right? Now, of course, we're going to need some towels. Have those on hand. And then you may want to invest in some sort of smock or apron of some kind, because it can get pretty messy grooming your puppy at home. All right, and two more items I think are pretty important to have on hand. Number one, a lickety mat. We're going to actually stick this to the side of the tub to keep our puppy occupied. I did mention this in last week's video all about fillable toys, and you can watch that here. The last item I think that you might need is a dryer. Now, you can use a handheld dryer. It is going to take a little bit longer, and it does get a lot hotter than a grooming dryer. But I'll put a link to a more affordable grooming dryer than the professional ones that we have here in the link below. Now, before you actually start the bathing process, we want to make sure that your puppy is okay with brushes and loud water or blow dryers. So we're going to work on overcoming scary things by doing a little training ahead of time. So we want to introduce these tools. So this is how we're going to do it. Each time the tool, or in this case the brush, is present, your puppy is going to get reinforcement for seeing that. So the brush is present, the treats are out. When the brush goes away, the treats are going to stop. Okay? So we're just making a positive association with this tool. We're going to start in little baby steps, right? Now the next step to this might be that we just take and we touch once and reward. Once and reward. I'm just touching off to the side. It's always instinctual for us to go for their head. Don't do that. You want to do the head last. Okay, when your puppy has a great association with whichever tool it is that you're using, then you'll know it's time to move to that next step, which is maybe even giving them a bath. A note about the bath though, we're going to put Pickles in the tub in just a moment. However, Pickles, sit. Yes. The water coming out of this faucet is extremely loud for your puppy. So you may have to desensitize them of that noise as well. And the best way to do that is just like we were doing with the brush. So we are going to turn the water on. Give the treats. Turn the water off and the treats stop. And we're going to do this for a couple different sessions here. Water stops, treats stop, and they go away, okay? So through this process, your puppy's gonna start to make a positive association. Again, this is so much louder for your puppy than it is for you, especially when they're in the tub. It's almost like they're standing under a waterfall, and it's just loud, and it kind of feels like it's kind of like pounding down on them. So we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to scare your puppy. So pre-training is really important before you actually start to bathe them in the tub. All right, something else that you're going to want to consider before you put your puppy in the tub is make sure any and all mats are brushed out ahead of time. So for example, Pickles has a little mat here right on his side. I'm going to make sure that we get that out before he gets in the tub. So we're just going to give that a little brush, and we got the mat out. We're going to make sure that he's well brushed all over before he goes in the tub, because if your puppy has a mat and it gets wet, when it dries, it kind of shrinks up a little bit and pulls tighter. Mats happen close to the skin and can even tear your puppy's skin if they get tight enough. This is why we should be grooming or brushing our dog on a regular basis. Okay. Now the most common place for mats to happen, ears, especially behind the ears, up under the armpits in here, and on what we like to call the pants, or up on the back end area, and the tail for sure. So make sure that we have a well-brushed puppy before we put them in the tub. Okay. Now normally I would be working on our grooming table, brushing him out, and to be honest, he does go to the groomer. I don't groom him any longer just because I have some back problems. So having somebody else help me out with that is so beneficial. Looks like he also has another mat over here on the side. So we're going to make sure, again, our puppies are well brushed out. All those mats are gone before they get in the tub. Okay. All right, part of the pre-bathing process includes not only brushing our dogs, making sure we get out all those mats, especially toe mats. Toes are pretty common as well, so we want to make sure we're getting in between those toes. But taking the flea comb, and what we're going to do right here is clean out the eye goop in the eye. And I like to use these flea combs because the little tines in them are so much smaller. Okay, so we're just going to get right in there and get out the eye goop. Okay, so now we got all the eye goop gone. We can move on to the next step, huh, bud? Yes. Okay, one tool that I think is super important that I forgot to mention is our tub restraint. So we want to make sure that our pup can't jump out of the tub while they're soaking wet and run around the house and get water everywhere. So we want to make sure that we have a tub restraint to keep them in the tub and keep them safe. One thing that you're probably wondering is how frequently you can bathe your puppies. So we usually don't bathe a puppy before 8 weeks, but you can bathe them about once every 4 to 6 weeks. Usually that's a typical grooming schedule where you would take your dogs to the groomers. And that is something to consider. Your groomer is a professional. They know how to use the tools properly, whether they're trimming hair, using scissors, using the trimmers. They also know all about body handling and how to properly handle them and work with them when, say, they're afraid to have their feet touched or something like that. If you are inexperienced and you use scissors and your dog moves the wrong way, you could seriously injure them. So much so that they're going to need to go to the vet for some sort of emergency procedure, probably stitches or something like that. Common injuries are clipping the ear too short, like physically clipping an ear, getting too close to the skin with the trimmers, or Cutting your dog's tongue, that's another one that's pretty common as well that we've seen from unfortunately inexperienced home groom jobs. So if you're giving a dog a bath at home, that's okay. If you're considering trying to physically groom your dog and trim their hair and things like that, I would leave that to the professionals. They know what they're doing. Okay, earlier I mentioned that we are going to use a lickety mat to keep our pups occupied while we are grooming them. So I'm just going to place the lickety mat here. Now, the best place to actually start the bathing process is on the back end. We don't want to start with putting water on their head. This is actually going to make them want to shake even more. So I spooked him. So we're going to start on the back end. Important to make sure that your water isn't too hot or too cold. Lukewarm is best. So while he's licking, I'm going to be spraying, getting them wet here. I actually saved the head for last, so I will actually get it to the point where I get them all wet here, all the way up to the neck, and then I stop, and I'll save that for just a little bit later. Okay, it's not time to add the shampoo now. Just gonna add a little bit of on the back here, a little line of shampoo. All right. We're gonna make sure that he gets all sudsed up underneath. Get the pits, get the parts. Make sure you get up underneath the tail as well. He wants to shake already. We'll try to get him to not do that right now. We can do that a little bit later. Okay, you can get in here with your fingers. If you have your Zoom Groom, you're gonna be able to get right in there and really suds him up. All right, now that our puppy is all sudsed up, we got to get to the head. We got to move to the ears. And one of the things that you're going to want to do, let me see if I can get him to move a little bit. He's so excited about that peanut butter. Is that when you go to spray their ears, you don't want to just lift it up and start spraying water in. So you want to make sure that you hold the flap closed, just like so. And we're going to start by doing it this way here. Just spray the water in the ear. You're preventing the water from going in their ear. I'm holding that flap closed with my fingers and then gently, I don't want to say pinch, but gently holding the ear flap. And we'll do the same on the other side. Hold the ear flap, or hold the ear canal closed. So I'm going to put my fingers over the ear canal and gently apply some pressure, just a little bit, not enough to make your puppy squirm. And we're going to get the ear wet this way. And then we'll be able to apply the soap. Now you may find it easier to use a washcloth around your puppy's face and their eyes. Okay, something to consider here that is also very important. When you're rinsing your puppy, you want to make sure that you get all of the soap off. Otherwise, this could lead to an itchy puppy afterwards because they will be itchy from the shampoo that you left on. Alright, so now that we have a well-rinsed puppy who wants to keep shaking, we are ready to towel him off. Okay, so I am just going to try to hold his head gently here, because if we can hold his head just a little bit, it will help him from not shaking as much. Alright, make sure we get all the water off here, because the more water you leave on, the longer it is to get to fully dry. So we're going to try to squeeze out as much water as possible here. Alright. Are you shaking? Are you shaking? Are All right, we'll get all that off. We'll dry you up. All right, so a couple of professional grooming tips here I'm gonna share with you. In order to help your puppy dry just a little bit faster, I know this is gonna sound absolutely silly, but if you take 50% water and 50% white vinegar and spray it on your pup, it'll also not only help them dry faster during the drying process, but it will also get rid of any musty smell too, which happens when you don't dry your dog properly. Drying your dog to the bone, making sure that they are super dry is important. Otherwise, you're gonna have a really stinky, musty dog in just a few days, and it'll actually seem like you didn't bathe your dog at all. So 50% water, 50% white vinegar, and I promise you, they're not gonna smell like a salad dressing afterwards. It dissipates very, very quickly, but it definitely helps the grooming process. Another tip that you're going to wanna do is dry your dog, at least the initial part, in the tub. Try to get off or blow off as much water as possible in here instead of getting it all over your bathroom or any other room that you're going to be drying them in. So we're going to start the drying process now, and I'll show you a couple tips to help that process go a little smoother as well. Okay, we're about ready to start the drying process here. We've applied our 50-50 of water and white vinegar. And what I'm going to also recommend that you do is get another dry towel. We usually go through at least 2 towels per dog when we're giving baths here. What's going to happen is the first initial kind of blowout, we're just going to get most of the water off. I am using a professional grooming dryer. It's called a high velocity dryer. It has a lot more power, but has more control over it than your regular hair dryer that, again, gets a little too hot sometimes for our dogs. And does take a lot longer to try to dry, especially thoroughly. Like I said, you really want to make sure that you dry your dog very thoroughly. We're going to start at the back end again, instead of working at the front, which is typically what most people want to do. They want to start at the head, but it does take the longest to dry because of typically the big flippy floppy ears that they have and lots of hair there. But also, if we start there and they get really frustrated or anxious, nervous because of the airflow that they feel around their head and their ears, we can pretty much guarantee they're not going to want us to do the rest of it. So we have our lickety mat going, so he's focused on that. We're going to start at the back end. We're going to do initial blowout of just trying to get all the water off. And then we're going to go back and really focus on each section and dry thoroughly. You can use a brush as well while you're doing this, just to kind of fluff the hair. So we'll see if we can get that done too. Put the towel over their body and then kind of blow underneath is it's also blowing out the water and helping, the towel is helping to absorb that instead of just it flying all over and then moisture constantly staying on the tub. Then our puppy then goes and leans in it and gets wet again. So if I use the towel, it helps to absorb some of the water that's flying off. Alright, before I share my last 2 tips with you, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. You don't want to miss next week's video. Now, the last 2 things that I want to share. First, ear cleaning. It is important that we clean out our dog's ears on a regular basis. I'm just using a ear cleaner. I'll put the link in the comments below for you guys. Right? So we do want to make sure that we're cleaning that wax out. We don't want it to get all built up. Pickles' ears are pretty clean. So we're just kind of scooping. We're not digging, we're just scooping. And we'll do the other one. And the last tip I want to share with you. Now, you guys are probably putting regular flea and tick treatments or giving your dog regular flea and tick treatments. You know, you're putting either the liquid on their back between their shoulder blades, or maybe you're giving them the pill. Now, it is important that if you're doing the one that is on the shoulder blades or on the skin, the topical, that you're going to want to wait about 48 hours. Right after a bath, your puppy's pores are wide open, and that would not be the ideal time to put a topical flea treatment on. So you want to wait at least 48 hours after they've been groomed or after you've given them a bath before applying that flea treatment. Yes, and it is important to do because you don't want to have extra creepy crawlies in your house. Or ticks. Ticks carry Lyme disease, and that can be pretty serious for both humans, but for our dogs as well. So be sure to check with your vet and talk to your vet about routine flea and tick treatments and that heartworm preventative as well. All right, in the comments below, let me know how your puppy's first bath went. Was it a disaster? Was there water everywhere? Or did it go pretty smooth?